code FED at checkout for 30% off U.S. grown hemp products. That's like 3,000 basis points. That's cornbreadhemp.com, code FED. Don't worry, it's legal. Investments are tough, but Cornbread Hemp makes life easy.
For many student loan borrowers, the resumption of payments means having to work those payments back into their budgets. But for years, many of them had redirected that money to other areas of their finances. We'll talk with WSJ reporter Joe Pinsker about the big picture in a moment. But first, 30-year-old Texas resident and student loan borrower Trey Watson joins us. So Trey, before the payments paused in 2020, what did your student loans look like and how much in monthly payments were you making?
Yeah, before the pause, I was making about $400 a month payments. It was minimum $285, I believe, but I paid the extra to try to get paid off faster. I had $20,500 left when they paused them.
How'd you feel each month when you were making those payments?
It just was kind of dreaded, you know, this money could be going towards my future instead of my past.
So when the pause went into effect, how did that affect your finances?
Honestly, it was like a huge burden lifted. At the time, I was kind of burnt out with work, and not having that commitment, I was able to actually, you know, just quit my job during COVID and stay at home. I was my own caregiver at the time, so I couldn't be exposed. And it was just a nice relief to not have to worry about that one extra payment each month.
So what did you do with that money?
So I started putting it aside first for an emergency savings fund, and then since I didn't have a job, I kind of wanted to start becoming self-employed or, you know, be able to keep the remote work thing after COVID. And so I started investing in my own little business where I do marketing on the side. Of course, I do have a full-time remote job, but I do work with a few organizations here and there on the side doing digital marketing for them. I was also able to save up a down payment for a new car. It was my first car that I purchased on my own. My previous one was a gift from my grandma to get me through college and such, and I had it for 10 years. So that was a nice relief and kind of my first big adult purchase I got to make up for college.
Now, before President Biden proposed a loan forgiveness plan, were you putting any money away, you know, just in case the payments pause were to end?
Yes, I had been saving up a little bit of like a cushion, but not as much because I was being optimistic about it getting canceled. But I did put a little bit of emergency buffer aside in case it like suddenly started out of thin air. But as I see, they're probably going to do this on-ramp thing, so that gives me a nice window of time to start saving up some more.
Right, that's the 12-month program that'll prevent those who miss their payments from defaulting on their loans or having their credit adversely affected. What adjustments do you see you'll have to make in your finances?
Yeah, it kind of feels like a step back from being a full adult. You know, I was able to purchase a new car, start a business, and now I'm going to be limited again with this burdensome payment that I haven't been making for years.
Do you see it affecting your purchasing power or maybe the money you can put toward the business you have?
As far as like my personal spending, I definitely, you know, won't be able to treat myself as much, you know, maybe reduce the amount of trips I go on. Also, just general spending as well. Actually, I haven't really thought about that, I guess. I've just been thinking about, like, I need to make the payment and not, like, what the impacts of that are, if I'm being totally honest. Because it's been such a roller coaster, you know, it's like this week it's canceled, next week it's not, now we have a new plan. It's very back and forth.
That's Texas resident Trey Watson. Trey, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you so much, JR. I appreciate you having me on.
Now let's bring in Wall Street Journal personal finance reporter Joe Pinsker. So Joe, we heard from Trey that having to pay off loans feels like he's kind of taking a step back in adulthood. How do his feelings compare to other borrowers you spoke with?
What I heard from other borrowers was both disappointment and also a general lack of surprise. The disappointment makes a lot of sense because if the plan had gone through, you know, there were about 20 million people who would have been eligible to have all of their debt wiped out. And for many people, this is a huge monthly burden that really seemed like there was a good chance it might go away. At the same time, people weren't exactly shocked that the plan didn't go through. Some of them were, of course, genuinely optimistic when President Biden announced the plan last summer. But because of the legal challenges and the current composition of the Supreme Court, they weren't really counting on it to actually go through.
Student debt payments have been on pause for about 3 years. What did borrowers do during that period?
Trey, who we heard from earlier, is a great example of this, and I spoke with others who similarly were able to reach some important financial milestones over the past 3 years. I've heard from people who were finally able to start building emergency savings, people who pulled together a down payment on a house after thinking that they never would have been able to get there. A monthly payment of hundreds of dollars can really add up over the course of 3 years, and for a lot of people that really made a big difference. Some also took the payment pause, which was of course also a pause on the accumulation of interest, as an opportunity to pay down their student debt.
Now, you spoke to a couple of borrowers, and many borrowers haven't ever had to make payments on their loans. How are they now factoring these payments into their budgets?
Because this payment pause has gone on from the spring of 2020 to now, we've now seen several college classes graduate into a world where they don't have to make payments yet. A trade association called the Student Loan Servicing Alliance, their estimate was that 7 million people have either graduated or left school and haven't had to make a payment. You know, some of those first years out of college can be when people have the most difficulty financially, and many of those people, some of whom I talk to, are grateful to have had a little extra breathing room over the past couple of years. And in the fall, the idea of giving up that breathing room in their budgets is pretty concerning.
How will the Supreme Court's decision have a long-term impact on the lives of people in this situation?
Having to make a debt payment every month, we know from existing research, can make a big difference in people's ability to reach certain financial milestones, like buying a home or saving for retirement. And as I've reported on before, this is especially crucial when people are young and making important decisions that will set them on certain life trajectories, whether it's about what career they pursue, or whether they take a risk and start a business, or where they live, or whether they buy a house. These are important years during which people's trajectories are in some ways set, and whether they hold debt or not at that age ends up being really consequential.
That's Wall Street Journal personal finance reporter Joe Pinsker. And that's your Money Briefing. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal.
All the way strains. What are you hearing about this at the summit?
Well, your timing couldn't be better. In less than 1 hour, all the presidents and prime ministers will meet in what's called the North Atlantic Council session, and they will start to unveil all the, we can call them deliverables, but all the announcements. One of the major announcements, and it might well, if it's not Ukraine first, it'll be this, is that all nations have agreed now to spend 2% of GDP as the minimum, so as the floor. 9 years ago at the Wales Summit in the UK, allies agreed to the goal should be 2%. Now here you're going to see that it's going to be the floor, so no less than 2%. And all 31 allies will agree to that.
Does this represent a compromise of sorts, or is this something that you really feel that there's agreement on?
I think it's something that there's real agreement on. Earlier today, a bunch of the prime ministers were here, and the Prime Minister of Estonia offered a couple interesting statistics, of one of which I'll mention. She said in 1988, so a year to 2 years before the wall fell down, allies were spending 2% because there was a threat. Today, we see only 11 members spend 2%. I think what you're seeing is a recognition of the threat, and that's what's going to drive us to all get to 2%.
That's Daniel Fana. Daniel, thanks so much for sharing this expertise with us.
Great. Thanks, Michelle.
A sign of the times at the New York Times. Yesterday, its leaders announced the newspaper was disbanding its legendary sports desk. This is Juliet McCurr, who has covered sports for the Times for almost 20 years.
The New York Times sports section is basically the history book of sports.
As NPR's David Folkenflik reports, the paper will rely on sports coverage from The Athletic, a website the Times bought early last year for more than $500 million.
On Monday morning, New York Times' top editors told their sports reporters that they'd all keep their jobs in other parts of the paper. Again, Juliet McCurr.
And many of us have dreamed our whole lives to work for the New York Times sports section, and to see it just disappear in a matter of minutes, it's heartbreaking, and my colleagues are sad and feel betrayed and angry.
In recent years, fierce competition emerged from ESPN and other sports channels and social media platforms. The Times shifted away from game stories to eliminate broader trends in the game, conduct investigations, and do enterprise work.
That's what made us different at the New York Times sports section, is that we didn't cover the X's and O's that somebody who didn't care about sports would ever read. We wrote for everyone, and that's sad that that's going away.
According to several people present, New York Times executive editor Joe Kahn praised the section at that contentious meeting on Monday and told staffers the quality of their work had nothing to do with the decision. The Times promised to continue enterprise reporting about sports, but there are questions about how the two sides will be integrated. The Athletic is not represented by the Times' newsroom union, and it operates under separate codes of ethics and reporting standards. The Athletic covers most major teams intently, credibly, largely from an obsessive fan perspective. New York Times Company executives have bragged about the site's growth, saying it's more than doubled its subscriber base in the past year, though it remains in the red.
You don't spend that much money for an outlet and an organization that's focused on sports so broadly and not integrate them into your operations at some point down the road.
Christopher Clary covered tennis and other sports for the New York Times for 3 decades. He left the paper last month.
It seems symbolic that New York Times sports, as we've known it, with its august Sports of the Times columnists and its very global, big picture approach to sports, is essentially being supplanted by the Athletic.
The New York Times is not the only major outlet retooling. The Los Angeles Times announced Sunday it would no longer cover each game for the city's big sports teams. It's shifting deadlines hours earlier to mid-afternoon and adopting a more magazine-like approach, much like the New York Times before it. David Folkenflik, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
It's 8:19. This is 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUB. Coming up as Morning Edition continues at 8:36. All right, there now the computer is complying. NPR's Michelle Martin talks to International Affairs Professor Nina Khrushcheva about the Kremlin, what the Kremlin is sharing in terms of Putin's meeting with the Wagner Group.
Support comes from Central Connection, a division of Central Clinic Behavioral Health. Central Connection is the front door for Hamilton County's behavioral health system. Services for mental health and substance use are now available by calling 513-558-8888, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
This traffic report is supported by AAA Bob Summerall Tire and Services. A wreck has the left lane blocked 74 westbound at I-75. A wreck on the left shoulder northbound 7175 at Turfway. Broken down on the right shoulder northbound 71 after Verona. Northbound 75, a wreck on the right shoulder at the Laughlin Split. Traffic is slow from Mitchell. A wreck on the right shoulder 275 eastbound just after Hamilton Avenue. Broken down on the right shoulder 275 westbound at Mineola Pike in Kentucky. And in the Xenia area, a wreck with injuries upper Beltbrook Road south Valley Road. From 9, first warning weather, mostly sunny, a bit warmer today, a high of 88. A few clouds tonight and dry with a low of 66.
Support comes from Bova Furniture. Since 1985, Bova's 20,000 square foot showroom has served the tri-state area with lines of contemporary furniture offering design, quality, and value in mind, helping create living spaces to suit a range of budgets. For design and space inspiration, you can take a virtual tour of the store by visiting bovafurniture.com.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from CrowdStrike, whose cybersecurity platform is designed to protect organizations by monitoring trillions of cyber events to detect threats and prevent breaches before they happen. CrowdStrike, protection that powers you. From Carla Itzkovich, whose gift in memory of Moises Itzkovich, founder of the Moises Itzkovich Foundation, helps provide public radio news and information to communities around the world. From Charles Schwab, dedicated to serving clients with 24/7 live support. The people at Schwab are committed to helping clients on their investing journey. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm A. Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Martin. Pediatricians and other health experts say the FDA could do more to regulate caffeinated energy drinks and to make parents aware of the potential risks. The concern comes as Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, who's also the leader of the Senate Democratic majority, has asked the agency to investigate what he calls an eye-popping amount of caffeine in one brand that's become popular with kids. NPR's Allison Aubrey has this report.
Teenagers may be a lot more caffeinated than their parents realize. Senator Schumer says one brand of energy drink called Prime has become a status symbol promoted by social media influencers. It contains more caffeine than Red Bull.
But unlike Red Bull, it is specifically targeted. The advertising campaign is targeted at kids under 18.
Schumer has asked the FDA to investigate both the marketing and the caffeine content, pointing to potential health risks. And Dr. Holly Benjamin, a pediatrician at the University of Chicago, says one of the problems with energy drinks is that it's hard to know how much caffeine and other stimulants they contain.
I do think parents are unaware of the actual caffeine content, or that they think that small amounts of caffeine are fine.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that kids under the age of 12 consume no caffeinated beverages, and over 12, a general guideline is a maximum of about 100 milligrams a day, the amount found in nearly 3 cans of Coke. But the energy drink Prime has double that amount, about 200 milligrams in a 12-ounce serving, which is a little less than a Starbucks coffee of the same size.
For you and me and the average parent or college-age kid out there, I think that's, perfectly normal and reasonable.
But for kids and teens not acclimated, that amount of caffeine can lead to unexpected side effects, beyond just that feeling of a pick-me-up.
When it crosses over into jitteriness, nervousness, anxiety, heart beating too fast, even headaches, that can start to be of more concern.
Food and beverage manufacturers do list caffeine on ingredient labels, but Aviva Musicus of the Center for Science and the Public Interest says they don't have to say how much caffeine a drink contains.
So it has to be in the ingredients list if it is an ingredient, but they're not legally required to put the total content of caffeine on the package.
There's long been efforts to change this, going back to at least 2011, when researchers identified more than 20,000 ER visits related to energy drinks. Now, pediatricians say social media fuels interest and demand, and many teenagers have little awareness of the risks. Allison Aubrey, NPR News.
I want to mention here that Prime Energy drink is labeled as, quote, not recommended for children under 18, unquote. In a statement, a company spokesperson says the caffeine in it is, quote, unquote, comparable to other energy drinks, and that Prime welcomes discussions with the FDA on industry changes the agency might feel are, quote, necessary in order to protect consumers, unquote.
Even before the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action in higher education, lawmakers in some states were trying to dismantle what's known as DEI. Colleges and universities have adopted diversity, equity, and inclusion programs as a way to recruit and retain a more diverse student body. But many lawmakers, mostly Republicans in states like Texas and Florida, oppose them. Lou reports for the Chronicle of Higher Education, which has been tracking these legislative efforts.
was just checking if you're still at work or not. I got back, came with the dog.
Well, I'm gonna go home. I'm going home now.
Okay, I'll talk to you later then.
You got my message?
I just saw it.
So between 5:30 and 7:30.
Yeah. What are you gonna do with it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Like, I'm guessing it's in a container.
I
Just
think.
keep it. Like, keep it in a nice container or something. Or what do you want to do? Like, plant a plant? Put it somewhere in the ground? You don't have to think right now. Let's just get the back your feet.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, there's no urgency on anything. What are you eating? Ah! Bad girl. No. How was your office? How's your work day?
It was good. I got some stuff done.
Good.
So, still behind, but I feel a little bit better. I'm not completely behind.
Good. Chico tried to sneak out.
Hiding by the door.
Yeah, like literally, yes. When Coco was going in, she's trying to scoop Coco for sneaking out.
You gotta let her out. On the porch.
We never have a porch.
And maybe grow some catnip or something.
I am growing some catnip as well.
Is she eating it all?
Oh my god, look at this. Look at that face.
Oh, excited. This guy comes into traffic, not even going speed limit, and he's just crawling to the light. Like, man. Like, I get trying to save on gas and get, you know, crawl to the light, but like, this is a fast road and you're crawling. You know? frustrating.
Where do you think you're going? Huh? Where? That way? No.
Okay, bye then.
Ain't bad. Yeah, okay. Talk later.
Bye. Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but my cat passed away yesterday. I had to put her to sleep. She had liquid or fluid surrounding her lungs, causing pressure, so she couldn't really breathe much. I'm thinking probably kidney failure or something like that.